My husband stole my invention, became a millionaire, and my revenge left him penniless and alone. I'm still reeling from everything that's happened, and I honestly don't know where to begin. It's a long story, filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, a strange kind of justice. I'm posting this because I need to get it all out, and maybe some of you out there can offer a fresh perspective, or at least tell me I'm not crazy for what I did at my ex-husband, Mark, and I met in college. We were both aspiring engineers, passionate about innovation, and, at the time, deeply in love. We shared dreams of changing the world, of creating something meaningful. Our early relationship was a whirlwind of late-night study sessions, shared pizzas, and brainstorming ideas that ranged from the absurd to the brilliant. We were inseparable, and I truly believed we were destined for a future together, both personally and professionally. After graduation, we decided to pool our resources and try to start our own small company. We were young, naive, and brimming with optimism. Our initial ventures were, to put it mildly, not spectacularly successful. We worked out of a cramped garage apartment, living on instant noodles and the occasional celebratory takeout when we landed a small consulting gig. During this time, I poured my heart and soul into a specific project, a concept for a new type of renewable energy device. I had been fascinated by the idea of harnessing kinetic energy in a more efficient and scalable way since I was a teenager. I spent countless hours researching, sketching, and building rudimentary prototypes. It was my baby, my passion project, something I genuinely believe could make a real difference. Mark was aware of my work, of course. We discussed it frequently, and he would offer suggestions and feedback, some of which were genuinely helpful. He was a brilliant engineer in his own right, and his input often helped me refine my ideas. We even brainstormed some aspects together, but the core concept, the fundamental design, and the initial breakthroughs were undeniably mine. I kept detailed notebooks, dated and signed, documenting every step of the development, every calculation, every patent search I performed. I was meticulous, almost to a fault, because even then, a small, nagging voice in the back of my mind told me to protect my intellectual property. I guess I'm glad I listened to that voice point one evening. After months of painstaking work, I finally had a breakthrough. I managed to create a small, working model of my device, demonstrating its core principle. The efficiency was far beyond what I had dared to hope for. I was ecstatic. I remember practically dragging Mark into our makeshift lab, my hands trembling with excitement as I showed him the results. He seemed genuinely impressed, even a little awestruck. We celebrated that night, talking about how this could be the invention that would finally launch our company and fulfill our dreams. We toasted to our future, to our success, to us. I truly believed we were a team, that this was our success. Over the next few months, we worked together to refine the prototype. I continued to lead the design and engineering, while Mark focused more on the business plan and potential funding avenues. He was charming and articulate, a natural schmoozer, and I was content to let him handle that side of things while I delved deeper into the technical complexities. We decided to apply for a provisional patent, a crucial first step in protecting our invention. I compiled all my research, my notebooks, my sketches, and my data, meticulously preparing the application. Mark reviewed it, made a few minor edits to the wording, and then, claiming he had contacts that could expedite the process, offered to submit it himself. I trusted him implicitly. He was my husband, my partner in every sense of the word. A few weeks later, he came back with exciting news. He had secured a meeting with a prominent venture capitalist, someone known for investing in groundbreaking renewable energy technologies. This was huge. We spent days preparing for the pitch, rehearsing every detail. The meeting went incredibly well. The venture capitalist was impressed, not just with the technology, but with Mark's presentation. He asked insightful questions, and by the end, he expressed serious interest in funding our project, contingent on a thorough due diligence process. We left the meeting feeling on top of the world. Our dreams were finally within reach. However, a subtle shift began to occur after that meeting. Mark started to take over more and more of the discussions. He would often speak about my invention or my design when talking to potential investors or legal counsel. At first, I dismissed it as an oversight, perhaps a natural consequence of him being the primary face of the company in these early stages. I gently reminded him of my role, of our shared effort, and he would apologize, claiming it was just a slip of the tongue. But the slips became more frequent, more pronounced. Then came the really unsettling part. The venture capitalist's legal team requested all our patent documentation and intellectual property records. Mark insisted on handling it. He said he wanted to make sure everything was perfect, that he didn't want any missteps. I, foolishly, agreed. I handed over all my carefully documented notebooks, my files, everything. I trusted him. A few weeks later, he came home with a bottle of champagne, a triumphant grin on his face. He announced that the funding had been secured. We were officially in business. He popped the cork, and we celebrated, but even amidst the revelry, a tiny knot of unease began to form in my stomach. He kept talking about his vision, his company, his genius. I tried to brush it off, to revel in the moment, but something felt off. The next few months were a blur of activity. We hired a small team, moved into a proper office, and began the process of scaling up the prototype. I continued to work tirelessly on the engineering, overseeing the technical development, while Mark focused on the business side, networking, and securing more deals. He was a charismatic leader, and the company quickly gained traction. One day, I received a cryptic email from a former colleague, a patent lawyer I had briefly worked with on a different project years ago. He congratulated me on the success of my husband's invention and asked if I was involved in the patent application. My heart sank. I responded vaguely, saying I was indeed involved, but that Mark was handling the legal aspects. He then sent me a link to the published patent application. I opened it, my hands trembling. The inventor listed was solely Mark's name, not ours. Not even his name first, followed by mine. Just his. My stomach dropped. The detailed descriptions, the specific diagrams, even some of the exact phrasing I had used in my notebooks. It was all there, but attributed entirely to him. He had stolen my invention. He had taken everything I had worked for, everything I had poured my life into, and claimed it as his own. I confronted him that night, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. He feigned surprise, then tried to dismiss it, claiming it was a legal technicality, an administrative error. He said he'd fix it, that it didn't really matter because we were married, and what's mine is yours, darling. But the way he said it, the coldness in his eyes, told me everything I needed to know. He had planned this. He had systematically cut me out, piece by piece, until I was invisible. The next few weeks were a living hell. I tried to fight him, to demand that my name be added to the patent. I consulted lawyers, but they all told me the same disheartening truth. Without a written agreement, without ironclad evidence of my sole inventorship, beyond my notebooks, which he could easily claim were joint work, it would be an uphill battle. He had meticulously covered his tracks, using my trust against me. He was the face of the company, the one who had submitted the patent, the one who had secured the funding. It was his word against mine, and his word, backed by a successful, burgeoning company, held more weight. He even tried to gaslight me, telling me I was being emotional, unreasonable, that I was jealous of his success. He offered me a generous salary and a senior engineering position within the company, a consolation prize disguised as an olive branch. He wanted to keep me quiet, to placate me with money while he continued to reap the rewards of my genius. I refused. I couldn't bear to work for him, to be a silent cog in a machine built on my stolen dreams. I packed my bags and left. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, walking away from everything I had built, everything I had believed in. I moved to a different city, started over, taking on a mundane engineering job just to pay the bills. The pain of the betrayal was immense. I felt hollowed out, empty. I had lost my husband, my company, and my life's work, but beneath the pain, a slow, burning ember of anger began to ignite. He thought he had won. He thought he could steal from me and get away with it. He thought he could break me. He was wrong that I spent the next 2 years rebuilding my life, but I never forgot what he did. I quietly collected information, keeping track of his company's progress, its public filings, its legal documents. I learned everything I could about patent law, corporate structure, and the intricacies of intellectual property. I consulted with a new team of lawyers, brilliant minds who believed in my story and saw the cracks in Mark's meticulously constructed facade. The key, they explained, was not to directly challenge the patent initially. That would be too difficult and expensive. Instead, we needed to find an angle, a weakness in his armor. And then, one day, I found it. Remember how I mentioned I had kept meticulous, dated, and signed notebooks? While Mark had used the content of those notebooks for his patent application, he hadn't actually taken the physical notebooks themselves. They were safely stored in a locked box I kept, a habit from my college days when I was paranoid about losing my research. The crucial detail was that my notebooks contained not just the core design, but also highly specific, non-obvious improvements and detailed experimental data that had been developed after the initial provisional patent application was filed, but before the full patent was granted. These improvements were essential for the device's efficiency and manufacturability. They were the secret sauce, the details that made the invention truly viable. Why lawyers realized that while Mark had filed a patent based on the initial provisional application, the subsequent, crucial developments were not explicitly detailed in his initial filings. He had simply incorporated them into the commercial product without updating his patent to reflect these new, patentable elements. He had assumed his initial patent would cover everything. This was a critical oversight on his part. We filed a new patent application. Not for the original core concept, which would have been an infringement on his patent, even though it was originally mine, but for my specific, detailed improvements and subsequent breakthroughs that had been developed after his provisional filing, and which were essential for the device's commercial success. We argued that these were separate, patentable inventions, building upon the core concept but distinct enough to warrant their own protection. My dated notebooks, with every calculation and experimental result, were irrefutable proof of my independent development of these improvements. The Patent Office, after a thorough review, agreed. I was granted a new patent, covering the critical advancements that had made the device commercially viable. This wasn't just a minor tweak, it was the difference between a promising concept and a market-ready product. With this new patent in hand, my legal team launched their offensive. We didn't sue Mark for infringement on the original patent. We sued his company for infringing on my new patent. His company's widely successful product, the one that was making him millions, incorporated my patented improvements. Without them, the device was far less efficient, far less competitive. The lawsuit was a media circus. The story of a husband stealing his wife's invention, only for her to come back and patent the crucial improvements, captivated the public. Mark tried to fight it, of course. He tried to discredit me, to claim I was a disgruntled ex-wife seeking revenge. But my evidence was irrefutable. My notebooks, meticulously dated and witnessed by several people, including an old professor I had consulted during the early stages, who gladly testified on my behalf, told a clear story. The court case was long and grueling, but ultimately, the jury sided with me. They found Mark's company guilty of patent infringement. The damages awarded were astronomical, effectively bankrupting his company. He was forced to sell off all his assets, including his lavish home, his expensive cars, and his controlling shares in the company he had built on my stolen dreams. The company itself, stripped of its core intellectual property, my patented improvements, floundered and eventually dissolved. He went from being a tech millionaire to being utterly penniless, his reputation in tatters. The public, fueled by media coverage of the trial, turned against him. His former colleagues and investors distanced themselves. He was left with nothing. I, on the other hand, received a substantial settlement. More than enough to start my own company, this time with a team I could trust. I'm focusing on new renewable energy projects, building a company based on integrity and genuine innovation. I'm not rich beyond imagination, but I'm comfortable, secure, and most importantly, I have my dignity back. The last I heard, Mark was struggling to find work, his name now synonymous with betrayal and patent theft. He tried to reach out to me a few times, sending pathetic emails filled with apologies and pleas for help, claiming he made a mistake and missed me. I never responded. There's nothing left to say. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that old garage apartment, about the dreams we shared, about the person I thought he was. It still hurts, the memory of that betrayal. But then I look at my new company, at the brilliant, ethical people I work with, and I feel a surge of pride. I didn't just get my revenge, I reclaimed my future. And that, I think, is the sweetest victory of all. I guess I just needed to share this story to see if others understand the kind of vindication I feel, and if it's okay to feel this way after everything that happened.